Hey guys, in today's video I wanted to cover all the non-lore spellemented spells that in my opinion are too strong. So let's get into it. I actually basically wrote an entire script on paper a few weeks ago, but hadn't got around to recording the video because I have a full-time job, IRL. Anyway, let's get started in this order. Fire, Ice, Storm, Balance, Life, Myth, and Death. Alright guys, so let me just hide this script like so a little bit. Anyway, so we're going to start with fire. So first of all, for fire, guys, we're going to have Elephant, very obvious. Um, Essentially, like, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. So essentially, like, Elephant obviously gives like a very strong like shield answer to fire wizards. So essentially, if the opponent shields, it's very punishable. It actually removes up, I believe, up to 3 shields to leave protected over time, and then does like decent DPP. Like the DPP isn't amazing, the damage per pip, but it's definitely significant given that generally speaking, fire has strong offensive stats. Although this is necessarily true at legendary inherently, for whatever reason, the waterworks gear for fire is really weird. Probably objectively the worst waterworks gear of all schools is the fire one. But that's specific to legend. Then I put fire elf with a. I mean, there might be other spells, but like fire isn't super popular, at least at like lower levels necessarily, or very good. And they also use like Ember Everburn, for example, treasure card, and probably another like maybe Croco. There's a fire. I don't know which spell it is. Maybe it's a Crocotep. Maybe that might be ice, but I think there's like a fire. Maybe it's BT Nirini or some. Anyway, they use a lot of TC hits as well, so it's kind of hard to say what main regular fire spells are super used that aren't lore spells. So I put Fire Elf with a question mark just because Fire Elf in general is super good historically in PvP, and the spellemented version has something to do with like maybe like removing a shield, leaving a dot, and then adding a second dot, like a kind of like a regular dot over time. It doesn't do any direct damage, so it's like pretty unique. And I couldn't really say like it probably combos with spells that have like dot requirements, but none of them are like super popular off the top of my head. Unless there's like an old version of Phoenix or something like that, or Sunbird or something that had to do with dot damages. Anyway, so that is fire covered. All right, now moving on fast, guys. Moving on to ice. We're gonna have Ice Colossus, Evil Snowman, and Ice Wyvern, just off the top of my head. So Ice Colossus, obviously the value of 365% traps is still very high, in my opinion, especially at least at lower levels, where like HP isn't as high as at max. Basically, it's a triple feint. It makes no sense whatsoever, especially given that I believe the Colossus still does decent DPP, similar to like Elephant or something, where it's like 585 off the top of my head or something like that. Is like the damage per 6 pips at tier 5, which is absolutely ridiculous because already it's like doing too much damage for an ice school quote unquote identity spell, and then it's putting a triple feint. Even though you have to remove shields, it's very easy to try shield, very easy to set shield, and ice can draw out games, especially with like a life mastery at lower levels. So that spell, in my opinion, it still makes completely no sense. I don't care what you say about trap counters, because ice has several ways of stacking traps, and especially with Chromatic Minotaur, which in my opinion is completely ludicrous, stupid, and should not be in the game at any level below max, because I think Ratbeard personally is horrible at his job and has no idea, like he's totally not self-aware of what he's doing to the game and how the game is objectively shrinking in terms of the PvP player base over time. I'm very happy about the recent bans, by the way. All right, Storm, and we'll see Life as well. None of them came to mind that are not spellmented spells. Storm uses Catalan. I mean, sorry, not lore spells. So Catalan like use a lot of TC. Obviously, Storm. They use like item cards as well, like Storm Elf or TC. Storm Beetle / Rain Beetle, or from the pet as well. Or like the Electric Elf, the Storm Elf, the Null Dragon. So yeah, not really any Storm relevant ones. Same for Life. They rely heavily on Goat Monk at every level below max. Then they're like I wrote here, Caterpillar, Wings of Fate at higher level, other spells like that. But Life is like in a weird JD spot, as if any of you guys watch like Dorferank or have watched him for a while, and then just like know Matthew and how his playstyle in general is basically like it's not really an exploit, like because he's like probably quote unquote like a good player, but Life is basically exploitable without going at every level band right now, as far as I know. Anyway, we had balance here right in the middle before we get before that little tension on life. But yeah, balance. So now, in my opinion, balance is way too versatile. Versatile. I don't even know how you guys personally pronounce it, but yeah, Lore Master itself, obviously tier 5, super broken, but that's not really what we're going to talk about. Hydra actually seems sort of mid in my opinion with the shield cloning. The damage isn't super high. Obviously, like an elemental shield is very good against it. 35 shields are pretty strong. Maybe they should be 30. Maybe they should be 25. I don't really know. I feel like KI, especially for tier 5 spells, they're all busted. Like, it's kind of hard for like a quote-unquote free-to-play player, in my opinion, to regularly reach rank 5, even for regular spellements, using no bots, no cheating, nothing at all. In my opinion, takes a long time. Um, I did it for balance, farming Zarathax, but I kid you not, I've probably done like 650 runs of Zarathax in like, well, like a little while. This was a couple months ago at that point. I'm for my balance, who does not have tier 5 lore master, and therefore I barely ever queue my balance because tier 5 lore makes balance like super good, at least a legend, and without it, balance, in my opinion, is actually extremely mid, especially now that they changed Hydra TC. Or you need Oni no Wars, which are not easy to obtain. Um, yeah. So Hydra sort of mid. Yeah. So anyway, Scarab is the one that steals a blade, if I'm not mistaken, or swaps it, maybe. Scorpion, same with the shield, and then Locust is a trap counter that used to be way too good. I didn't even remember this. They also have Gearhead Destroyer, or whatever it's called. Anyway, the Berserker thing, the swap, heal over time and damage over time. All those spells, basically, in combination with like Lore Master, and then Oni no War and Judge, and then at higher level, obviously, Mockenspiel is very good. Gaze of Fate is very good as like a hidden bob. Probably other spells. There's like Scales of Destiny or whatever it's called up until like got changed like a few weeks ago, I guess, at this point, or maybe a couple months ago. So yeah, balance is just too versatile. Their stats are too good. Doesn't really make sense. I feel like if you have everything on a balance, like everything you need, and your opponent isn't like warded and proofed against balance or something, which used to matter less because of Hydra and stuff like that. I feel like balance is like, well, balance and myth are the best schools. Myth because of they're literally cracked, completely busted, and I have no idea how the devs haven't addressed it yet. Actually, completely ludicrous. I don't care if you say they're like my friend Jasmine told me that they're soon going to like nerf betrayal and like maybe delusion or something. But like they should have done that like literally like super long ago. Like really long time ago. They didn't even drop the ball. They like fucking shattered the ball with like a knife, like broke it and like dug a hole and like then like dug like a deeper hole inside that hole and like stuffed the ball down there. That's how much they quote unquote dropped the ball. Like they literally like were dribbling and like got their hands cut off. That's how much they dropped the ball for myth school in general. All right, so as we just I don't know, led into myth. So Stone Colossus obviously counters weaknesses and debuffs way too well. Doesn't really make sense for myth, given that historically they have a super easy time getting around shields. So how can you make them get around shields and weaknesses? They're uncounterable. It makes no sense whatsoever. Especially as Stone Colossus actually has good DPP, good damage per pip, or at least decent, and especially at tier 5. 615 or even more, maybe, I believe, for 6 pips. And combos into Troll, which may or may not be OP. I'm not exactly sure, because, but like Rashad, like, I literally have like a really tough time beating like John, the myth, the legend, even though like I know everything he has and I've faced him several times. I don't even try against them because it's useless, because he has a brain. Like, he's obviously not the dumbest player in the entire queue, and therefore it's, in my opinion, myth against like any school except possibly like Joseph Ghost running like tier 5 lore and having like infinite Oni no Wars somehow, is like the only way to like consistently beat a myth that isn't a complete robot off the top of my head. Then Minotaur, I put Chromatic Minotaur, but like I don't know if it's as much of a problem for Myth itself, because like TC Minotaur, Frenzied Minnow, because of the damage, is just kind of like better in a lot of cases because you already have Betrayal and Delusion, um, to like get around and trap stack, and you have fuels from the Maple Moose, fuels from What else we got, mate? What else we got? Chivalrous Knight and all that. Or if you could even run the little Shaolin Monkey or whatever it's called. Or the like Myth Sabertooth, which I believe both of those give like Legend of Time. So yeah, that's that for Myth, I believe. And then Death, finally, we have Banshee, Vampire, and Ghoul with a question mark. Ghoul question mark just because I don't actually pack it on my Death right now. Or if I pack it, I pack like 1 or 2 max. Just because like the way like the matches run at Legend and it's like rather defensive meta, people say, or whatever. But yeah, Ghoul is obviously like good for like the value is high. So like obviously you remove a shield off yourself to give yourself 2 blades, and at max tier 5 it's 230 blades, which is obviously like hot. Like obviously there's a lot of blade counters at least at legendary, but obviously like on paper situationally it's like very very strong. Like it's very good if you're like debuffed, if they weakness you or you hit into a shield to remove the shield and then blade yourself. Obviously you can like momentum wise it's very very strong value. It's very good value. As like apparently I think it's Blake PvP, they used to talk about value all the time. I never actually watched Blake at all, ever. Then we got Vampire, which obviously doesn't make sense for the weaknesses, and the fact that it actually gives lower weaknesses against balance makes balance even more OP and messed up. But yeah, Vamp, I'm pretty sure as it stands right now, gives 60% debuffs. It swaps to debuffs on the opponent for 60% debuffs against every school except balance, where it's minus 45, like probably guessing universal, probably universal debuffs. But still, this like the value wise, because it does like okay, like DPP sorta technically speaking. Like an open vamp, especially if like Infallip or something, will actually do like okay damage and give you like a tiny bit of heal. So like this spell doesn't make sense. Like I don't know why they even like originally decided to be so strong. Like it's basically like a complete like it's basically like a super sketchy like double the free. Like on paper, given the history, especially combos with like Trifold Fever or Threefold Fever, whatever it's called. On paper, this spell literally makes no sense. Like this Vampire Spellemented looks like a fan made like Death Efreet from back in the day. It literally looks like you like enchanted Efreet with Elucidate, and it was like a super sketchy like Halloween pack card from like 2013 that gave 2 weaknesses instead of the 1. Like this spell is completely busted. Banshee, personally, I would low key like, although I hate to say it, like, or I don't hate to say it, but low key, bro, this spell is too good. Like the value is too high. Like 3 pips is kind of sketch because like a lot of people have like perfect pips and stuff. Like on a Death, it's like not that hard to have perfect pips. So like you're kind of losing that pip value because there's no like pip convert at like levels under max as far as I know. But this spell is so good. Basically, it's like always a good decision. Like I've basically never lost specifically because of a Banshee play, even when the opponent is like single bladed and I'm low pip. It was like always worth it. Unless you're facing like unless you're in a very specific scenario, but even in like a myth that has like Stone Call, it's better to like let them get that dot on you than have the 35 blade buffing them. So Banshee's just sick. If your opponent is like super silly, like a super 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 silly goose, and like double blades against Death, and they get Bansheed, it's like so good. It's so good. Even against the myth, because then they'll have 2 minus 25% infects, 2 minus 25% weaknesses, and even if they delusion you, then you can just trap counter. So yeah, it's not that bad. And Gear Destroyer mentioned it. So yeah, I think that'll be it for me, guys. Let me just see. I'm not sure how stupid my face was through this whole video. Didn't really look at it at all. But yeah, we've been recording for 13 minutes. That's pretty cool. Yeah, let me know what y'all think. Have an amazing day. I might make a follow-up on this about Lore Master spells and pack spells, but no promises because I do work full-time. Anyway, guys, take care. Have an amazing day. See you soon.